The fundamental thing that separates Protestants from evangelicals and restorationists is their approach to the church. The only reason that Protestant churches exist as separate institutions from the Catholic Church is because the people who founded those churches were trying to fix problems within the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church did not like that, and they got kicked out, and then a bunch of churches that liked these guys followed. That's what happened with Luther. That's what happened with Calvin. That's what happened with Zwingli. That's what happened with all the reformers, right? They were trying to fix their respective issues, and they got excommunicated, right? So the main thing is that they are their own separate institutions. They have always believed in the concept of the church as an institution, okay? Protestant means that you are a part of a historic institution and you are pro-institution, right? That means that like non-denominational churches and like restorationist churches, like Church of Christ or whatever, those are not Protestants, because Protestant means you fundamentally have ties to the Reformation, okay? So that means Baptists. Now, I'm not talking about like your modern Baptist church that has like low-key disgusting practices of the Eucharist, okay? I'm talking like historic London Baptist style Baptists, okay? Methodists come after the Reformation, but they originate from the Anglican Church, so they count. Lutherans, and then all of the continental reforms, Presbyterian, Dutch Reformed, Congregationalists. You could technically call Anglican Reformed because originally Anglican was just Reformed, but it's a lot more than just Reformed nowadays. Okay, so that's what Protestant means. So Protestant means that you are. So if you are a Protestant, you are pro-institution, and you are seeking to align yourself with the Church Father. Contrary to a lot of Catholics and Orthodox believe, Protestants actually like the Church Fathers. I love the Church Fathers, and I love the sacraments, right? A lot of Catholics and Orthodox love to say, "Oh, you're Protestant. You believe in like 40,000 denominations, and you hate the Eucharist, and you hate baptism, and you think it's all a symbol, and you don't know anything about the Church Fathers." No, I love the Church Fathers. I love the Eucharist, and I love baptism. I don't think it's a symbol. Read John Knox. Read John Calvin. Read Zwingli. None of these guys thought they were a symbol. Read Martin Luther. Martin Luther literally refused to unite with the Calvinists because he saw their view on the Eucharist as not literal enough. He kept screaming "is" means "is" at them, okay? He believed in a real presence stronger than I know most Catholics do, okay? And he was a Protestant, okay? He was the Protestant, okay? So no, Protestants don't hate the sacraments. Protestants don't hate church history. We don't hate institutions. We love these things, okay? The kind of Christians that you were thinking of that don't know anything about church history, that think all the sacraments are symbolic and are not necessary for salvation, those are evangelicals, right? So your local non-denominational church, your local strip mall church, that would be an evangelical church, right? The kinds with like the very gay rock concerts that just think about Jesus loves you. That's an evangelical church, okay? Those are essentially the modern version of the Anabaptists, which were condemned by the Reformers because they are doing the same thing that the Anabaptists are doing, which is trying to start Christianity over from scratch. They were completely anti-institution, completely retreatist, and completely balkanized in their style of churches. And the Reformers were like, no, you can't do that. You can't just not have a church institution. You can't just reject the sacraments. You can't just restart Christianity. They called them heretics for that. Now, I don't think they're heretics for that, but like they were condemned like that for a reason, because that is condemnation worthy. Okay? Evangelicals are essentially the modern equivalent of Anabaptists. Okay? And restorationists is weird. They're kind of a niche thing. Honestly, you can kind of lump them in with evangelicals because they're often one of the same. But restorationists are essentially churches that have roots in the Restorationist movement from the Great Awakening, which I will say modern evangelicalism does have a lot of ties to the Great Awakening, but it's movement like Church of Christ and like the Holiness movement, right? Like those come from basically like they're churches that were trying to restart Christianity, but in an institutional sense, right? Like they'll say like, oh, we the church fell away into like a great apostasy and we restored the one true church and we're the one true church. Okay. Funny enough, this is actually where Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons come from. And that's why they believe there's a great apostasy. But those aren't Christians, obviously. Okay. So stop straw manning Protestants, okay? Because look, a lot of the hate that Protestants get is like 40,000 denominations, no sacraments, no church history, okay? Guess what, bro? If that's what Protestant meant, that would be a fair thing to hate on, because guess what? That is, I hate on evangelicals all the time for that, okay? If you're going to hate on Protestants for actually being Protestant. Don't just confuse us with evangelicals, okay? If you're going to hate on me for being a Calvinist, for believing in spiritual presence, covenant theology, and predestination, okay? Because that's what I believe in, okay? So don't straw man me as some evangelical who doesn't believe in sacrament worship and does not believe in church history, okay? So with that, I will say that I'm not trying to be offensive towards evangelicals. I'm gonna be honest. If you're an evangelical watching this, I low-key hate your style of church. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Okay. However, I still think you guys are Christians. Okay. I still think that there are plenty of real Christians with very beautiful faith within these non-denominational churches. I just think that this style of worship is very irreverent, and I find that the lack of church institution is very bad. So I love you guys, but I also kind of hate your churches. Okay, no offense. Okay, and we're all still believers at the end of the day, so we shouldn't fight about this, even though I find it kind of hard to not fight about this because I feel so passionately about it. Okay, so God bless. Keep spreading the gospel. Get out there. Do your shit, man. Good night.